Welcome in the latest episode of Betting the Pitch. This is the Europa League, Europa Conference League edition. I'm your host, real_G Warner, on Instagram, Patreon, and Twitter, plus YouTube as well. And thank you if you're tuning in live via StreamYard on Twitter. I appreciate that. If you're watching it on a delay, that's cool too. If you leave a 5-star review wherever you're watching, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or subscribe to the YouTube channel at the real_G Warner. We're going to go through the Europa League and Europa Conference League in this episode. I'm going to do my best to, at least I have a pretty good idea of where most of these, especially in the Conference League, I have a pretty good idea of where most of these teams play their football domestically. And I feel like we're in a great time of the season, especially considering where some of these numbers are compared to where I was expecting them to be. So I feel like we've got a lot of big underdog to discuss, which will be which would be great for me, I think, and trying to find some winners here. We'll do an ultimate best bet end of show, which I'll give my favorite bet, pick one from both the Europa League and the Europa Conference League, and pick out which one I think is most likely to win. So we'll start in the Europa League. Certainly that is where some money is, maybe not as much as the Champions League or in these domestic leagues, but I think it's certainly worth it. And that's why these teams play these games. So we'll start in Italy for a Serie A versus Serie A matchup, which is pretty interesting, I think. We got Milan hosting, as I wear their kit, Milan hosting Roma in, I guess, the northern, I guess, financial capital, probably, because clearly Rome is the capital of Italy, for everyone to know. It's where the civilization started. It's where probably everything that we know in this world began. I do have my Roma scarf in the background back here, but I didn't set it up very well and don't feel like adjusting it, and probably shouldn't while recording live. So I'll start Milan, a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice on the Roma side. Over under is 2.25, juice more to over than to under. My first reaction really was, wow, I can't believe Roma is this big of an underdog. Certainly, they haven't really gotten a ton of respect from the marketplace. Which is weird because I felt, getting too much respect during the Mourinho era. Then Gabriele De Rossi comes in and they score goals and a million goals and are impossible to stop, despite having some fairly low totals, which almost were reflecting, I felt, the Mourinho style. De Rossi's been more open, been scoring a ton, but I think also getting a healthy Paulo Dybala to team up with Romelu Lukaku is a huge, huge advantage. Now they go on the road to Milan, a familiar place to them. Certainly will not be an easy setup, and both these teams are so far behind Inter Milan in Serie A that this is the biggest competition, their best chance to get a trophy, if not for the Coppa Italia, which I think both are maybe eliminated. Lazio is playing Juventus, and Fiorentina were facing Atalanta. So yeah, both are eliminated. So this is the biggest thing, biggest show on turf or on grass or whatever we're playing on. So Milan 3/4 goal favorite. So what do I think about Milan in general? They've had a really, I think, they've their results have been much better than their play in Italy this year. And I feel like they were in the Champions League in that group of death, didn't play very well in it. It was certainly a tough, as they call it, the group of death, certainly a difficult situation for them to enter. But I haven't been very impressed. I feel like Roma getting this big of a number. I mean, I probably would like it more with Mourinho as manager because he's proven and is also very good and proven at restricting goals. That's my biggest question for this matchup is can Roma keep Milan out of their own net, which is honestly not the most difficult thing. I mean, Olivier Giroud is a great goal scorer. Rafael Leao has been awesome, but I think has been really focused on getting a move somewhere this summer. Really, I think he's been more focused on that all season. Either that or he just had such a great year last year that the reversion to the mean hit him very hard. Still one of the best athletes, but I imagine Roma will be pretty intent on trying to stop him on that left wing. You still got to really worry about Olivier Giroud in the middle, which has given, I think, Christian Pulisic, Captain America, a lot more chances to score, and it's really been a great move for him, especially after he was barely playing at Chelsea in that cluster. You know what? I don't think Milan deserved to be this big of a favorite. It certainly looks like the juice is going to push this one back towards a half of a goal instead of closing 3/4, but you never know. Could be reversal. We could see Milan being the bigger club with a bigger fan base, potentially catching more money. And favorites do tend to get bet in, I don't know, all types of sports betting. So I'm interested in this Roma side. I like that 3/4 of goal. And I guess I'd also like under 2.25, though it feels pretty low based on the scoring from Roma ever since De Rossi took over. I just don't know necessarily if that's enough for me to want to stay away though, because I feel like this is two teams that know each other. First legs of knockout competitions are always. Um, I mean, they're always conservative. And Roma, they go behind 1-0. They aren't throwing everything forward because this isn't a league match. There's another leg coming. So I think this is a great position for Roma to go potentially try to restrict Milan, find a goal if they can, but keep it low scoring as well. Moving next to Liverpool hosting Atalanta, and they are certainly more focused on the Premier League than they are on winning the Europa League. But I've really a lot of times been surprised at how Jurgen Klopp does his lineups for competitions like this one. He did a huge like play a bunch of backups for one of their last matches in the group stage in the Europa League when they went to Toulouse, but um, and really it got Toulouse, I think a weekend team got them through to the next round. I don't know what Liverpool is necessarily going to do here. I mean, pretty disappointing with their draw, but they got a very fortunate penalty late for Manchester United. Just story of the Manchester United last week, essentially, giving up late goals and killing my bets, unfortunately. But I think Atalanta come in. I mean, they not getting much respect here. I'll get into the numbers. So Liverpool, goal and a half favorite with almost all the juice. Over unders 3.25, almost all the juice to over. So there's a ton of expectation in Liverpool to score a bunch of goals here in a competition they don't really like see as that important to them. I mean, it's important, sure. There's money involved, yes, and another trophy, and everyone's into that. But I mean, come on, the Premier League is like breakfast, lunch, and dinner for this team. This might be a side salad or something like that, a dessert late, if my metaphor holds. Atalanta on the other side, they're in Coppa Italia, but took a loss on the road at Fiorentina last week. Um, don't have a ton going, I guess, for them in Serie A. I mean, fighting for Champions League, so that's important to them, of course. But they can get in Champions League if they win this competition automatically. I think that's probably too far down the line, especially in only the quarterfinals now to think about that. But I think we see a good effort from Atalanta. They've been not just the offensive only side that they had been for the last few years that got them a ton of points and really, I think, separated the wheat from the chaff in Serie A, at least from Atalanta and the smaller clubs. They're one of those, not one of the seven sisters or six sisters or whatever they call it in Italy, but Atalanta have certainly been one of the best, most consistent sides across that country. I think it's going to be tough going into Anfield, but I feel like Liverpool haven't been as dominant in the Premier League. Maybe that's something to say about that competition and the level of defenses there because they're much more competent, capable than in the other leagues. Ton more money in England with the deals that they have, broadcasting rights and things of that nature. But I think Atalanta are a live dog here. I don't know if I trust them to go win at Anfield to say the least, but goal and a half underdog. I mean, they fall behind. They're not going to be sending everything forward, as I talked about with Roma. And if they go behind and they somehow escape Anfield a 1-0 loss, great for under. And it's great for that plus 1.5 because they're covering that by a landslide. Maybe it's 1 3/4 by the time this kicks off as the UK dominance in markets for this sport seem to be really relevant. And I don't think there's a lot of belief that Atalanta are very good. And I think they are very good. So give me Atalanta 1.5 goal underdogs. And I also like under 3.25 as well. Moving next to Benfica hosting Marseille from France and Benfica in Lisboa and Lisbon, Portugal. Benfica, half a goal favorite right now with all the juice. Over unders 2 3/4, juice pretty heavily to under. Marseille are one of those teams that are tough for me. They're very tough for me to figure out, put it that way. I think Benfica have been one of the most overrated clubs across, I mean, maybe not the top 5 European soccer leagues. They get a lot bigger of a magnifying glass upon them. But Benfica have been bad. I mean, they were more likely to advance in their Champions League group over Real Sociedad, who ended up winning the group. Inter Milan finishing second. Benfica like surviving to get third place. They were basically the group bottom for a long time this year. Don't really believe in their manager, Roger Schmidt came over from Red Bull Salzburg, and really, to me, that's a club with managers that basically pull the strings and get jobs that they really don't deserve at this point. I think Marseille, there's plenty of questions about them. They've been through a bunch of managers this year, had a lot more success with this most recent one, and got to play Friday match, which was big, get them a little extra rest for their road trip to Lisboa. I think the half a goal with all the juice on Benfica is just too big. Too like I haven't really agreed with Benfica numbers. I mean, they were over a goal favorite against Toulouse as well, and I don't agree. I don't know that I love unders with Marseille and Benfica. I've seen plenty of goals in their matches, but really they've been from penalties or really fortunate situations. I think they got two penalties, and that's why they advanced against Toulouse. So give me Marseille half of a goal underdog, and I like under 2 3/4 there as well. Last but not least, as we hit 8 teams in the quarterfinals, says that's how it always works across any type of sport, it seems. Bayer Leverkusen are hosting West Ham United. Currently, Leverkusen a 1 1/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Over under is 3, juiced pretty heavily to under right now. West Ham, really hard to trust their defense at this point. Somehow they got a win on the road at Wolves this weekend, still conceded a goal, which was really horrible, bad challenge that resulted in a penalty, but maybe it was a good result for them, only conceding once. I think they're West Ham, that is. I mean, they dispatched of Sport Club Freiburg and did a great job of playing a German side in their group that they ended up winning. I don't know that West Ham. I mean, it's weird to see an English Premier League side this big of an underdog to a German Bundesliga side. The squad values are in England are gigantic. They play much better competition in England as well. And I think this is going to be a potentially rude awakening for Bayer Leverkusen, who basically have dominated this competition, but haven't really faced anybody of note. They also have been really fortunate to win a lot of games at the end. It's not great for under there, but I like to push on 3. And I think West Ham, I mean, assuming that this competition should matter the most to them right now. So they should be putting Lucas Paqueta in starting. He's essential for that offense. And I feel like James Ward-Prowse has been more of a creator in midfield. Him and Thomas Suchek basically filling the void of Declan Rice, which has not worked. It's Declan Rice is basically playing 2 positions for them and has starred at Arsenal. I don't think that Leverkusen this much better. We're basically rating Leverkusen were, I think, a goal favorite on the road at Union Berlin last weekend. That doesn't really compute here. That they're, I mean, maybe would be a goal and a half favorite at home to Union, maybe a goal and 3/4. I mean, this is like pretty similar of a number, all the way juiced 1 1/4, probably gets to 1.5 before kickoff. Give me West Ham, and I like that under 3 as well. So dog and under at all these potentials for the Europa League. As I now will move to the Europa Conference League, which here's where the real tests come in. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups across all sports. Soccer is dominating right now, of course, but there's baseball literally until October or November, depending how long the World Series goes. So get online or jump on the ship. It's not a sinking one. It's not the Titanic. It's we made over 18 units last year at pregame, shooting to best that number as I am in all sports at pregame. But I was not able to hit that college basketball number of last year. But 36 units is pretty hard to do, I guess. I set myself quite a standard. And got 1 point above that, I think, to the 40 unit number, but I ended up settling in a lower number, but still positive for the year. That's the goal for every season. Really, I want to make 20 units. That's my goal for my own personal bets, and then certainly want to make all my customers as rich as possible. But please follow along on pregame. Still doing baseball podcasts there with Munaf Manji. Also doing those are Thursdays and Sundays. We got Tuesday night baseball podcast with A Brooks Bets. We should be doing a Need for Seeds college basketball wrap-up edition. I thought we were doing one tonight, but at Big East Ben, who knows what he's doing, probably celebrating. He's an 11-0, incredible, perfect, won every single best bet from the NCAA tournament. What a run for him. And then I guess that's probably all I can plug right now. But if you're all these lines are courtesy of Bet Online, so make sure if you're not a member there yet, make a first-time deposit there or at their sister site, SportsBetting.ag. Both are giving out free money. Just follow the links in the podcast description. So moving to the Conference League, we have Victoria Plzen hosting Fiorentina. I believe that is a Czech side. I think I had a Pilsner Urkel from Plzen, Czech Republic, when I was out in East Germany in Leipzig last year. 2 years ago, I guess that would be now. But Victoria Plzen, they were very good, I felt, in the Conference League this season. Were getting strong lines, dominated their group, and now they're a home underdog to Fiorentina. So Fiorentina, they've got Coppa Italia on their mind. They're trying to climb the Serie A table as well. A Europa Conference League victory, winning the whole thing. They got to the finals last year. If they win the whole thing, they would get an automatic bid to the Europa League. That helps. But you could certainly argue this is not the most important competition for them, but they're going on the road as a favorite to the Czech Republic. And I think it's going to be a tough match for them. Fiorentina love to possess the ball. They really protect their defense by having the ball as much as they can. It's worked fairly well for them, though I feel like they haven't really taken the steps that Fiorentina fans and the club and leadership wanted to take. I'm interested in the Vittoria Plzen home underdog, and I like under 2.5 here as well. It's possible that I would like that under maybe a little bit more than I like the side, just because I don't have a great read on Victoria Plzen at this point. Certainly don't follow. I mean, I barely can keep up with the 5 leagues I do cover, plus the internationals or continental competitions. But man, I think Fiorentina are one of those very I feel like the market has really liked Fiorentina across this tournament, and I'm not sure that I have agreed, though they're here, but they're such a much bigger squad value than whoever they play against Europa Conference League. So I'm not really sure that says much. Moving next to another match in this early window, starting 12:45 Eastern time in the United States, 11:45 in Dallas, where I'm talking to you. Late night with the real underscore G Warner, but I guess it's not super late. Usually doing this after midnight, so somehow way ahead of schedule today. But Olympiacos Piraeus from Athens, they are hosting Fenerbahce from Istanbul, Turkey. Currently, Olympiacos a pick'em with almost all the juice. Over unders 2.5, juice almost all the way to over. So we're expecting some goals here, which I would expect just from Turkish teams in general. The Turkish sides have really not defended very well across any of these competitions. Champions League had a lot of big scoring matches. We saw it in pretty much any competition they're in. Olympiacos have not been impressive to me either. Certainly not one of the biggest budgets, but as the reigning champions of Greece, I believe they're generally up there and have a very wealthy owner who spent and overspent his budget, his means for Nottingham Forest and got them a points deduction that could get them relegated, which is incredible. It doesn't seem to be the same rules in Greece, so that's, I guess, good for him. But I think Fenerbahce, I mean, they're probably the better talented team. I mean, they basically collected a bunch of over the hill, or at least players that weren't getting long deals for tons of money later in their career across Europe. And so they've got a lot of big names. I do think that it's kind of like my buddy Crosby's UFC strategy, where if you know their names, they've probably been fighting for too long. In this case, I think the names are big, but they're not. They kind of excite you because you're like, oh, I know who that is, but they're not really as talented anymore. They're on the downside. It's the dusk of their career as opposed to the dawn, of course. So I think I'm most interested in the Fenerbahce side. I'd love to see them climb to quarter goal underdog. We don't have that yet. I think my bigger interest is probably over 2.5 here, but I'm not really an over player, and I really don't like overs in this stage of competitions because there's not you're not going for broke. You're trying to keep this as close as possible if you're a road team, or try to steal a win, so you can go home and basically coast to a victory or to an advance. And the home team wants to take more initiative and must, but I don't know that Olympiacos have that much talent. Certainly, both defenses could be really bad here, and we see horrible penalties given away by bad refereeing decisions, or just bad decisions by the players. Doesn't seem too hard to see goals in this one, so I'll probably end up leaving this one alone. Next, we go to Club Bruges hosting PAOK, I believe. I don't think that's how they call themselves, but it seems to be how it's read off on a bunch of the English-speaking channels broadcast from England. And then again, why would you ever trust an English person to pronounce anything? They still haven't figured out to say Martinez. So Bruges, a 3/4 goal favorite. All the juice on PAOK, PAOK on the road. I think they're from Greece or Cyprus, I want to say. Is a pretty good run for two clubs, I guess, if Olympiacos and PAOK are also Greece. I mean, might as well look that up since we're here. Thank you all for tuning in. PAOK is from Thessaloniki, so they're a big Greek city, of course. I probably should have known that one. My bad. But anyway, thank you for all of you coming in and watching. I mean, I'm always amazed at how many people watch Europa League and Europa Conference League episodes for me. Maybe it's been a good Champions League week, and so people are trying to ride off that. I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner. Hit 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You should find that under Betting the Pitch. Plus, I guess hit the follow button if you're not following me yet on Twitter at the real underscore G Warner. But PAOK 3/4 goal underdog on the road at Bruges. Bruges took the world by storm last season, their deep Champions League run, or at least deep for a Belgian side. They certainly saw a lot of talent walk out the door, but they brought a lot in as well. Still, I think one of the best teams in this competition, and one that I'm hoping will be an underdog eventually against one of these bigger sides and could potentially do some damage, as we saw in the Champions League last year. I don't really think we have that. Bruges, I think PAOK are going to go into Belgium and try to keep this as low scoring as possible. I don't think they believe a lot in their side. So that does interest me for a potential under here. So I'll put under 2.5 on my list in that last match of the early window in the Conference League. Now I'll move, or excuse me, that's a in the later window. My bad. Last but not least, we go Aston Villa hosting Lille. Almost went with a Spanish pronunciation, David Villa. But Aston Villa, 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Over unders 2 3/4, juice a little bit more to under than to over. Sizable difference, 10 cents, minus 115 right now at Bet Online, SportsBetting.ag. If you're not a member, go follow the links in the podcast description. Aston Villa, great home team. They have looked really poor away, and this is a great setup for them because they get the first match at home. The problem is, I don't know that Aston Villa's home dominance has really been as dominant as we suspect. They've got a ton of injuries they're dealing with. Ollie Watkins, don't know if he's back for this matchup. Don't know if they're really risking him for this type of competition. Rather, they'd probably want to save him for their Champions League race in the Premier League, or at least to try to secure a Europa League spot. So we could see Aston Villa, which I mean, Juan Duran ended up scoring, I think, in his stead on a great finish, side netting, incredible. Wouldn't expect that much more from him. I mean, maybe this is the dawn of his career, but I don't think we'll see that. Lille on their side, so Paulo Fonseca, we've known him from managing Roma and Shakhtar Donetsk, I believe. Fonseca is a great manager. He's done very well at Lille. They were kind of struggling after they won Liga, and their manager left, and they were trying to figure out what to do, selling a bunch of players, a bunch of talent. They are always talented. Edin Zagrova is one of the most talented players I don't think anyone talks about. Bosnian, or Kosovan, I think Bosnian, but ultimately I think Lille can score. Jonathan David is not really my favorite striker. I think he's a penalty hound basically, but it's nice to have one of those. I think Aston Villa, we've seen them play a really high line. I think Lille, I mean, they don't really have that burning pace up front to take advantage of that, but it's a big risk about to have anyone running at you with a lot of space to cover. Plus, we saw Emi Martinez miss this past weekend. I think Robin Olsen filled in, who's not very good keeper, but I guess serviceable and does play for his national team in Sweden. Would imagine Emmy is back for this one, and he's a big deal. But Aston Villa is a really big favorite for a lot of injury questions and certainly motivation questions. So put Lille, let's see, a 3/4 goal underdog, waiting to see if that one hits a full goal of insurance. I guess I like under 2 3/4 a little bit just because I'm not really I have no interest in overs at this point in this round of this competition, or these competitions plural. I just, I think I mean, I'm trying to figure out how risky I want to be because there's a lot to like, I think, on both of these cards. And I've had some really good success in the past in this competition. Maybe that's why all of you are watching me live on Twitter. I appreciate that. And everyone's still sticking around. So love you. Thanks for coming. So it's time for the ultimate best bet. I've already pretty much pubbed or given a plug for all the podcasts I'm doing at Betting the Pitch. We have baseball podcasts once a week for now. We might switch that to 2 if there's enough demand. If you want to see 2 baseball podcasts a week, please hit me up or leave a 5-star review is the best way to do it. Slide some DMs, never a bad thing either, unless you're hitting on me. But, hey, at this point, I'll take what I can get. I'm sure there's a lot of beautiful women watching Betting the Pitch live with the real _ G Warner at about midnight on a Wednesday night. But anyway, I think for the most part, we'll just keep going with weekend podcasts for soccer, of course, midweek stuff, and then baseball, and of course the 2 pregame pods I'm doing on Thursdays and Sunday nights with Munaf Manji as well. So stay tuned for that. Look out for those. Hopefully we have some good updates in those directions moving forward. But I think everyone's here for the ultimate best bet, and that's why you're sticking around and listening to me talk. So I appreciate that. I think it's time for me to really just jump in and record this bad boy. So, man, I mean, there's so much to choose from. That's my biggest dilemma here. But I think it's time to do it. This is the real _ G Warner. This is Betting the Pitch, the Europa League and Europa Conference League quarterfinal leg 1 edition. It's time for the ultimate best bet. I'm picking one of my favorite bets. I like a lot in both of these cards. If you haven't watched the full episode, go spend 40 minutes or so with me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube at the real _ G Warner. But for my best bet from the Europa League, I'm going to go with the Atalanta, 1.5 goal underdogs on the road at Liverpool. Really scary to fade Liverpool, but I don't think this is their most important competition. I think it's literally bottom of the list. So that's a huge thing. And I think we might see that reflected in who plays. So certainly the line is very suggesting that they're playing the best they have. From the Europa Conference League, I like PAOK under 2.5 goals. I think they go on the road to Bruges, who aren't the most dominant team, and try to keep a low scoring match as much as they can. But for the ultimate best bet, I'm going to go with that Atalanta plus 1.5. I think that's too big. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch, European, Europa League, Europa Conference League edition. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, any tips, comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, feel free to throw them at @the_Real_G Warner on various sports betting platforms across YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. We'll be cutting I guess, little ultimate best bet portion into a reel on YouTube Shorts and on Instagram. So make sure you're following me on those platforms. And if you have anything you'd like to send my DMs or something like that, we'd love to talk more, just to make this a better use of your 30 minutes or so. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. And I'll talk to you all very soon.